Hello, everyone, and welcome to HavoKast. This is a place where we rank things, chat about creation, and discuss our opinions on things we love. Today, we are going to be talking about the James Bond franchise, specifically the 25 Eon official movies. I'm going to rank them from 25 to number 1, in my opinion, of movies that I think I like more than the other, that I would rather watch before the ones below. Kind of the order that I personally would want to watch them. Not necessarily what I think are better movies, because I think there are some really strong, awesome movies that I wouldn't necessarily want to watch more than the others. And it's so mood dependent too. So every time I do this list or think about the rankings and things like that, and I've done it a couple of times without recording it, but it always changes slightly, and some things have gone up and down depending on how many times I've watched them, and I'm just going to discuss some of those feelings, and feel free to talk about your lists. I've been seeing a lot of different people doing Bond rankings and things like that, and I just thought it was super fun because this is a franchise I love. I could watch any of these movies, but there's definitely some that I am more partial to than others. So I'm going to get into this. Number 25, we have Die Another Day. And I know this one is one of those movies that people love to hate. I know it's a movie that is super fun in places, but also super ridiculous. To me, it does a couple of things that really just turn me off of the whole movie. And one, it's tonally, the first half and the second half of the movie are just in completely different worlds. I think it could have been one of the best and an incredible concept to explore, and then they just cheese it up later on. I think there's a lot of weak acting in this movie, despite good actors in the movie. I love Halle Berry in a lot of movies, but I think she is let down by the script and the writing, and especially some of the cringy, dated one-liners and things. So I think that's kind of a big miss on this movie's part. I think the villain is interesting, but also ridiculous towards the end. We got an electric, fake Iron Man suit, and just, again, tonally, just all over the place. There's a lot of fanfare and stuff when you go into, the R's lab or Q branch or whatever they call it these days. Because Die Another Day was also in that in between when there was not a Q. Q comes back later on in the Craig era, and Q was there for basically almost every film before Die Another Day, but we're in this limbo with John Cleese, which is fine. I don't mind him in the role, but I think to make up for the lack of Q, we had just everything from all the movies packed into one room, and we're just supposed to go, oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's nostalgia bait for a little bit. Meanwhile, the movie's just ridiculous. Space Laser, seen it in Diamonds Are Forever, and it wasn't particularly effective there. So just, a few things that kind of throw me off. Like I say, if it's on, I'll watch some of it, but it's not one that I'm picking up off the shelf. Number 24, we have Spectre, and my God, Spectre, what a letdown. I was so excited to see Spectre when it was coming out. I was so ready for, let's go back in time. We got the first few movies. We're calling back, but we're going to do it with this Craig twist. It's going to be really good. And it was not. I did not like this movie. I was so disappointed. And I think a lot of that was hype. But also, I just think it's kind of boring in places. I think it's paced pretty poorly. I think Craig was tired of the films by this point. And they had to, tie everything together with the adopted stepbrother thing. I don't even know. I think it suffers from a lot of big ideas that didn't have enough time to execute all those big ideas. To me, it's just ridiculous that Austin Powers thought of this twist before Spectre did, and then Spectre took it and ran with it. The Craig era is an era of movies that kind of suffers from everything has to connect. James Bond traditionally takes from a lot of other popular things and themes, Star Wars and Jaws and blaxploitation and all that kind of stuff, and then throughout the different themes, you see, okay, well, this is what they were going for here. This is what popular, so they go for this here. Ninjas throughout the 80s and stuff like that. It's just like, I don't know. They do a lot of things like that. And I was wondering, like, man, did they get away from that? But no, they didn't, because when Casino Royale came out, Marvel was starting to take form and have their cinematic universe. So I guess, the writers and producers with Eon were like, hey, a cinematic universe sounds good. Let's have all of our Bond movies connect. Well, the thing I love about Bond movies is that you can just kind of jump in, go along for the ride with the mission, and then that's it. You're done, Next one you can pick up wherever. You could go out of order. It doesn't matter. But Craig, they want you to watch them all the way through, so you get from point A to point B to point C, D, E, And the first 3 films, even Quantum of Solace, you can kind of like go along for the ride. Spectre, it just comes to a screeching halt when I think they bit off way more than they can chew. And it's not even a fun movie to chew on, you know what I mean? There's a couple of highlights in here. Train scene, henchmen, awesome to see those in a Bond film. And style-wise, you can kind of get into it. I can see some good style points in here, but just overall, it's not super thrilling, kind of boring. Number 23, speaking of boring, let's go to A View to a Kill. There are fun moments in here, but there are a lot of tired moments in here too. Man, A View to a Kill. It's it's got Roger Moore in it. I love Roger Moore, but it's noticeable how he's aged. It's noticeable how tired the franchise feels at this point. A lot of jokes, a lot of fun, like I say, but outside of the villains, there's not a ton that I love about this movie. It's not one I love to go back to. If it's on, I'll watch it, and I'll be happy to watch more. But I'm not super thrilled to really revisit this one. I think it sucks because I love Roger Moore. I love that era, through the 70s and 80s, but yeah, the locations don't really do it for me. The plot just doesn't do it for me. It's just one of those where kind of a sigh on his way out, of somebody that I really enjoy in that role. But yeah, View to a Kill, not a super engaging, entertaining movie either. And that's just kind of why it falls down here. I want to love it. I want to like it. I know some people absolutely love this movie, but it's just not one I'm grabbing off the shelf either. Number 22, we have Quantum of Solace. I think the biggest problem with Quantum of Solace is the editing, and I think the second biggest problem with Quantum of Solace is it didn't even really need to be made. We had a fantastic movie with Casino Royale. We had a fantastic movie after it with Skyfall. And in between, I know there was a writer's strike. I know it's the shortest Bond film, but I think it's the shortest Bond film because, one, it's paced just so ridiculously quick. It's a lot of action, a lot of fun in places, but, I could take it or leave it. I don't need to revisit this one often. It's one where I got it on DVD for Christmas, many years ago, and I was happy to have it to just collect another Bond film, but one I don't tear into too often. I think it's acted really well. I think the villain is just kind of a non-factor, though. If you're acting in a role that doesn't demand too much of you, that you don't really have a lot to go on, and a couple of callbacks in the movie too, just to kind of fanfare it up, which I don't always have a problem with, but it all seems kind of unnecessary. I think that's the overall theme for me on that one. I could see how people like it. It's just not my style. Number 21, we have just the most controversial, up and down on people's lists. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it awesome? Is it terrible? Do we love it? Do we hate it? No Time to Die at number 21. And it's one that, there's a few movies like this, and Die Another Day is one of them, where half of the movie, part of the movie is great, and the other part, it's just ridiculous. This one is not ridiculous in the fact that it's just so outlandish and unbelievable, and, were sci-fi again or anything like that. It's just more, everything had to come to an end. It had to the, writers and creator of this one. But why? There was literally, it's a long movie, and it's one that forces you to believe a lot of things and just accept a lot of things and just, coincidence after coincidence. These people meet up, Safin and Madeline kind of cross paths. You have to infect people with nanobots, and you just have to be right place, right time. There's nothing you can do about the nanobots. You get gadgets that aren't even used in the movie. So he's given things that don't even go anywhere. Like, the whole thing is so wild. Some people don't like the whole, grounded, retired, has a family James Bond, which I don't have a problem with in concept. I think the Daniel Craig era, in my opinion, has been marred by too much trying to get away from what Bond has been, which is just, you go with him on his mission, you have a lot of fun, you can take it more seriously, you can be more ridiculous, whatever, but you don't have to invest, 8 hours into understanding an overall story, an arc, if you will. But I can accept that. I can go through the arc. I'm a huge fan of the series. I don't mind watching them. I do, however, think No Time to Die should have been 2 or 3 movies, and there should have been a lot more concrete, solid, easy ways to get from point A to point B. There was a lot of stuff we just had to swallow and move on. And to me, No Time to Die just, I don't know, it just falls flat, and it killed what could have been an incredible movie, because I was really vibing with it for a while, and then the end, it all swells up into this, why didn't he do this? Why didn't he try to take the nanobots out? Why didn't he try to avoid the missiles? Why didn't he try to move to the other? It's a bunker. Why does the island need to be destroyed right away? Why, there's just so many questions. Why didn't he leave with, everybody else that left on the boat? And the sad thing is, it wants you to feel this emotion, and I felt it. I hated feeling all that emotion, because it's not what I want to do. I want to feel good. I want to see, somebody kick ass and not be as grounded as I am in reality. But there's emotional scenes in a few of the James Bond movies that I appreciate. This one, I feel like it's just so forced on you, but yet I just, ate it up. I was sad. I felt horrible about the ending, and not in the way I think they intended me to feel, so just one of those things. I don't know. Like I say, it's super divisive. It's one that I don't even plan on going back to anytime soon. But, yeah, I think, to be fair, it is a movie I enjoyed more than the others at some points. I just think there was so much that I did not enjoy also that it's got to be down here. Number 20, License to Kill. A movie that I absolutely hated when I first saw it. I thought, man, this is just not a James Bond movie, and it's trying too hard to be something it's not supposed to be. It's not fun at all. And I don't know, I just kind of shut myself off from it. Watched it a few more times, and definitely warmed up to it. I think Dalton is shining in this one. I think the villains are shining in this one. And I think there's a lot of good in this movie. I think it's a great movie in general. I think number 20 on are movies that I want to watch at some stage. If I'm feeling them, I want to watch them. I think 21 through 25 are movies I don't have to watch if they're not on. I don't ever have to even think about them really. But 20 and on, I get in the mood to watch some of these. More the top than the bottom, but 20, I don't mind. License to Kill is a good movie. I don't mind revisiting it. It's one that flips a lot with The Living Daylights for me. And I just think it's so mood dependent. James Bond movies, music, that kind of thing in general. It's just so mood dependent. Your top 10 might be completely different the next day. But overall, great movie. Like I say, great acting. There's some tonal things, of course, where they miss the mark. They try to put some humor here and there. I will say a huge thing that disappoints me about this movie is the ninja scene. I don't have any idea why we're shoehorning ninjas into this like Miami Vice spin-off movie. You know what I mean? Like it made no sense. And I think it would have ranked higher for me if it just took itself a little more seriously in places, which I know is crazy to say because License to Kill takes itself so seriously. It's so dark. But like, stick to those themes, you know? You don't have to have a winking fish. You don't have to have ninjas flipping around and, you know, coming out of nowhere to fight. You know, it makes no sense. The ending's awesome though. I love that tanker chase. I love the Felix Leiter revenge story coming to a conclusion with that. But then, that being said, Felix has his leg bitten off and his wife is dead. And he's in there, hitting on a nurse. It's like, pick a lane and stay in it. License to Kill. Come on. It's nitpicky, I know, and it's just certain scenes that are short and everything, but it's like, God, just please pick a lane. That being said, number 19, unfortunately, we are going with The Living Daylights. And Timothy Dalton, I'm sorry. I actually really like his Bond. I like how he portrays him. And I like this movie a lot. I think there's just such weak acting around Dalton. And it feels very classic James Bond. It feels, honestly, like it came from the Connery era and the Moore era, and they just kind of put it together, and then Dalton's playing Bond, which I don't mind. I think there's, a good amount of light in the movie, a good amount of seriousness in the movie. But Dalton's still trying to figure it out. He does not fit right in like Moore kind of did when he jumped into James Bond. And, Connery defined the role. Even, I gotta say, even George Lazenby, like, he's not a fantastic actor in the movie, but I still feel like he looked a little more comfortable in the movie than Dalton did. I mean, even that first opening scene where he crashes into the boat, and he does that one-liner quip thing in the boat at the beginning of Living Daylights. He just looks uncomfortable laying there even. I mean, it's just, the whole thing is so weird. But, the story's kind of convoluted and weird in places. There's just a couple of different plot points that don't really, in my opinion, tie in, I guess, or make sense together. I think it's just kind of raising the stakes to raise the stakes, make it feel like it's more important than it is. And the funny thing is, like, I'm saying all these things about a movie that's ranked higher than License to Kill, which License to Kill has one simple mission, but they also shoehorn in, like, weapons and some other unnecessary thing. It's like a revenge plot. It's like drugs, and it's like missiles being delivered or stolen or something. And it's just a lot of stuff going on. Living Daylights is that same way. However, I think they tie it together a little better. The story's told a little better, and it's a little easier for me to just enjoy all the time. Like, if these two were on together, I'd have to be in the mood for License to Kill. Living Daylights, I could just pop on and just let my brain wander a little bit. And that kind of segues into letting your brain wander, because number 18, my biggest guilty pleasure in this franchise, Diamonds Are Forever. I am a sucker for neon lights, for Vegas, Reno, Carson City, casinos, like sleazy casinos, that kind of thing. Like, I think that's so cool. I love old school Vegas. It is not a particularly stylish movie. I think there's highs and lows in it. It's not a particularly well-written movie. And the special effects are truly shocking. The laser and everything like that. I think it's super campy. I think it's super jokey. There are parts that I absolutely hate in this movie. The moon buggy chase, I cannot stand that. I think it is so unnecessary and ridiculous. And the thing I don't like about that is that it follows up what I think is a fantastic scene where he infiltrates the lab and has to be suave and cunning and, use his wits to get in there. So it just makes me so mad that the highs and lows always come right after one another. Fantastic song and fantastic villains. Blofeld, however, I do like Gray. I do like him in that role. I don't love him in the role. But Mr. Wint and Kid are so iconic in my opinion. I think they're awesome. I don't know. There's just something about this movie I've always loved. I think it's fun to watch. I think they're, like I say, the highs are real high and the lows are really, really low. I actually wanted to put it higher, but I don't know. I think about it all the time, and just like I have to be in like a, one of those moods to watch License to Kill, I think I have to be in that same kind of mood, but on the opposite end of the spectrum for Diamonds Are Forever, where I'm like, I just need to be happy-go-lucky, get in this movie, laugh a little bit, enjoy the, the one-liners and the cheesiness, and just go with it. But yeah, definitely a guilty pleasure for sure. Number 17, I'm going with The Man with the Golden Gun. Just that title alone, you think you're in for a treat with this movie, and it lets me down in a big way. Some people love this movie, some people absolutely hate this movie. I like it. I think the worst thing about it is, they just don't know what to do with Roger Moore in it. They push him in a direction he shouldn't be pushed in, and I hate seeing one of my favorite Bond actors not be able to be himself fully because they don't really know what to do with him yet. Man with the Golden Gun is just a movie that should have been way better than it was. I think the concept is incredible. And I wish if they revisited a concept, they'd revisit that. Because, Christopher Lee was incredible in the movie, I thought. He's such a great counterpart to Moore. And I think if Moore was playing, more like the For Your Eyes Only Roger Moore or the Spy Who Loved Me Roger Moore, I think we would have got tonally a better movie. The slide whistle, that kind of stuff is just throughout the 70s. It doesn't bother me as much as it bothers a lot of people. I think, it's ridiculous to have that in there. It's ridiculous that they did that. But I'm not somebody who's going to hate a whole film because of 5 seconds, They have ninjas in there. I think it fits the tone a little better. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's not like in License to Kill where they just come crashing through a wall out of nowhere. I think, like I said, it's just the campy era. You just have to take the good with the bad. And with this movie, I think, an assassin going up against Bond is good, but what they tend to do with these movies is try to raise the stakes unnecessarily. And so the solar laser, thing, it just didn't need to be there. It's so pointless in the whole, obviously they have it tied in, but if they didn't have it tied in, I think we'd feel a little more like, oh, it's assassin versus assassin here. It's like the best of the best versus the best. And I thought that was fine. That was fair enough. But, Man with the Golden Gun, kind of all over the place. In my ranking, it's gone a little higher than it has been in the past, to be honest. I've warmed up to it a little bit, but it sucks seeing one of my favorite actors not be able to be himself. But speaking of which, number 16, we have Moonraker. And this is, like I say, a lot of these movies fall into certain categories, and this is, again, one of those that falls into the... could be an interesting movie or a great movie based on the first act, and then just completely goes crazy in the last part of the movie. And Moonraker is one where I love the locations. He's all over the place in this one. They put him in so many locations. Some people view that as a negative and it's too much. I think it's cool seeing the travel log. But, we got to swallow a lot again to try and figure out how he gets from point A to point B to point C, all that. Jaws coming back is... it's cool to see Jaws, but I don't know why he's back either. It's strange that that's a henchman that just kind of appeared again. Maybe a fan favorite. Clearly a Star Wars reaction movie, and I think tonally that is very challenging. It's like the Star Wars, version of The Spy Who Loved Me. And I love The Spy Who Loved Me. I love that movie. Moonraker, I like it. I've actually warmed up to it a lot more. I thought, at first the space thing was just ridiculous. But now, we have billionaires blasting themselves off into space, it seems like every month, so I guess it's not as hard to believe. The thing that I absolutely cannot get over, though, and that puts it down here, is that space battle. You take Thunderball's underwater battle and just give them lasers. First of all, why do they have lasers? Second, How did that whole team just get up there all of a sudden? The U.S. Marines or whatever they are, Space Marines. I don't know. Whoever they are, whoever came up into space. How do all of them have space lasers, first of all? And second, what happens to the people that win? What do? Just sit there? Do they get sucked back into their ship? I mean, the whole thing makes no sense at all. And it's the most ridiculous thing that I've ever seen in a Bond movie. Even outside of those lasers and things like that come from space. Like I like the space lasers and the satellites. I think those are stupid, but I mean there's just so much you have to just chew on in the final act. Something I don't love about the Bond franchise is that you have to have some giant battle through a lot of these. Some random, he's a secret agent. I want him to secret agent. You know what I mean? I want him to be that secret agent. I want there to be a secret mission. Having, Marines or whoever show up and a big battle between two factions does not seem like secret agent stuff to me. It seems like the conflict is not resolved in a secretive way. Not a huge deal for me, but I think those battles just get kind of thrown in for the sake of action. Some of them do it really well, and some of them do it really poorly. I think Moonraker is one where they're just throwing everything in the kitchen sink at the movie to compete with Star Wars. 15, Tomorrow Never Dies. So I actually really like this movie, and I think, again, this is where, 15 and above are movies I could watch anytime. You told me, hey, we're putting on Tomorrow Never Dies, I'm in there. I'm ready. The thing about Tomorrow Never Dies is I don't need to watch the whole movie. I'm happy to watch the whole movie, but there's very great scenes, some of the best scenes in the franchise. The BMW, the opening scene's awesome. And by the BMW, I mean the chase in the garage. I think that's incredible. It comes after a really low point in the film. Not low point as in it's bad, but low point as in tonally you're kind of, Bond is upset about what happened, and it's a dark thing that, killing Dr. Kaufman and everything after Paris is dead. There's just a whole lot of oh wow, that just happened. And then you're, in the car park and BMW scene, and it's really good though. I love the scene. I think it's one of the best in the franchise, like I say. But there's a lot that I just don't need to, necessarily be part of. I think it's just so many highs and lows. Wei Lin's awesome. I think he finally has a counterpart for the most part that can keep up and do the thing, and I think it's awesome to see them work together. They, shoehorn a romance aspect in there, which doesn't work, of course. No chemistry at all between them outside of co-workers. Brosnan's excellent. I love him in this movie. I love him in every one of his movies. Even Die Another Day, which I hate that movie, but I mean, I could watch Brosnan all day. He's awesome. Tomorrow Never Dies, like I say, it's just the high and lows. We're in the action and then we're just kind of hanging out for a bit. And then we're in action and then we're just kind of hanging out for a bit. To move the story along, I get it, but it's one that it's solid. I saw it when it came out. A funny story, I was excited about it because I had seen GoldenEye a couple of years prior as a kid, and when I was younger, games and movies and music, if I was listening to, let's say, I don't know, a song by your favorite artist or something, if I heard another song by them and it wasn't exactly the same, I'd hate it and say, this doesn't sound like them. What's this? Same with games. If I played the first part of a game, Duke Nukem 64 is a great example. I got Duke Nukem 0 Hour instead and played that and was like, this is a totally different game. I don't understand this, this isn't fun. This isn't what I was expecting. It has to be exactly the same. And same deal with GoldenEye. I see GoldenEye. I'm not that much older, so I watched Tomorrow Never Dies, and I'm like, well, this is Brosnan, but this isn't James Bond. What the hell am I watching? It's not exactly like GoldenEye. Luckily, when when The World Is Not Enough came out, I was a little older and could appreciate it more. I went back to Tomorrow Never Dies. I like the movie a lot. I could watch it any time, but it's just not, it suffers again like kind of Quantum of Solace, where it's in between two movies that I think are far superior. At number 14, we have Thunderball. Thunderball is one that's so weird to me. It's the exact opposite of License to Kill, where I saw it after, watching a few of the Bond movies, and I loved it. I thought it was my favorite. I mean, if you had asked me like 10 years ago what my favorite Bond movie was, I would have said Thunderball. I love everything about it. Nowadays, though, I still like the movie. I think, it's got another big battle in it, just like some of these other ones, and it's a water battle, so it's slow. That doesn't bother me as much. I think people are bothered by how slowly paced the movie is. I can stay along with it. I have no problem with that at all. I think the locations are beautiful. I think there's a lot of really cool, like, time capsule-y stuff in there. I actually like the villains. I don't love all of the villains. Fiona's amazing, of course, but everybody else is kind of like they're there. Connery's great. There's some tonally hard things to watch in this movie, specifically at the beginning in the recovery, spa place. But overall, I like the movie. I like the story. I think when I first saw the underwater battle, this is why I don't have a problem with it. I didn't know what was to come. I had never seen it before. And this is kind of how the whole movie is. You're along for the ride, and when you first watch it, you're kind of like, okay, I can get behind this. This is interesting. But after you see it, it's kind of like what's coming, but it doesn't come soon enough. So you're in that water battle, and you're thinking, all right, yeah, oh, God, this part too. Oh, wait, the thing has to fall down. Oh, he has to shoot this dude. It's just like, just let it end, So when you're first along for the ride, and I think this is what happened to me, I loved it because I was like, oh, wow, that was really different and really wild and beautiful. And then you go back through again, and you're like, oh, God, is it really worth, having to sit through all this again? And like I said, I think, the Connery in the city, at the club and everything like that, I think is just absolutely awesome. I love the time capsule aspect of it, but there's just so much that, just kind of slows down the vibe. I can definitely be in the mood to watch this one. I definitely like a lot of parts in it, but 14 feels right. 13, this is crazy to me. Skyfall is at 13. And Skyfall is a movie that I think is incredible. I think it's beautiful. I think it's very well acted. I think it's stylish. I love everything about Skyfall. As a standalone movie, too, I think you can watch Skyfall if you're not even a fan of the franchise and enjoy it. But I don't have as much fun with it as I do with the other movies in this list. So there's definitely, it's a movie where I think is really good and it's really fun and I can watch it over and over, but I have to really be in the mood for it too. I'm definitely somebody who likes to put something on and just kind of like zone out. I'm somebody who likes to put something on and just kind of work through other things on the PC or, multitask, and Skyfall just demands the attention. It's one of those that I'm like, I'm invested in that movie, so I have to really be in the mood for the movie. Overall, I love the movie. I think it's excellent. I think it's awesome. I think if anybody sits in the comments and says, hey, that's way too low, I mean, I agree. I get it. But just an overall fun factor and personal preference kind of thing, I'm definitely sitting right where I want to sit with this one. Also, guys, feel free to throw your rankings and stuff like that in the comments. We could talk about it, if I'm ever live on Twitch or whatever, too. I have no problem with anybody crossing over and, revisiting some of the stuff we've done and talked about. I want to hear your opinions. I think that's what this YouTube channel's for. We get, opinions on stuff we love and the content we create and, consume and everything. And I think it's fun to share that, give different perspectives on things. That being said, getting into number 12, For Your Eyes Only. God, I love this movie. Like, I know it's not the most exciting. I know it's kind of boring in places to some people, but I love just, the spy stripped down, especially after watching Moonraker. For Your Eyes Only was such a treat, and it's just a treat every time I go back to it. I think Moore is fantastic in this movie. I know the villains are kind of low key. There's a lot of them, but they're all very low key because you're not supposed to know who's who. And I think it's interesting because even when you go back and watch it and you get that like, oh, we're actually supposed to not like these people, it's still easy to watch. It doesn't really take out too much, which usually when you have a big twist or like a turn in the movie, it kind of takes you out of it, and there's almost no reason to go back because it's not going to be that same big, overwhelming feeling. This one doesn't feel like that. It's still fun, a fun ride along. Like I said, there's nothing that's going to wow you. The action scenes are good. But I gotta say, when I see Moore kick that car off the edge, there's just something so badass about that. And I know he wasn't the biggest fan of that, and I think it was very jarring to a lot of people. But I just think seeing him do that, it just felt so cool. Mostly because, like, that's, Moore is like your fun uncle, Moore is like the guy who's going to tell jokes. He's going to have a smile on his face. He's going to be even keel. He's super charming. But when he gets serious, And you feel it even more when he's serious. Because it's just one of those things where, like, you're just not expecting it. And then when it happens, you're like, oh my God, did that just happen? Like, you better be careful, And I just think that's such a huge impact on that movie and that scene and everything. At the end, I guess it doesn't really matter, the whole, like, MacGuffin in the story. They just destroy it, which made actually a lot of sense to me, because then it's kind of like, detente, like, no more. Nobody needs to go after each other. It's not in one hand to the other. So I think that's actually the best kind of ending there could have been. I think if British intelligence held on to that, I think it would have just upset everybody else in the grand scheme of things. So everybody's cool, So it made a lot of sense. But, like I say, there's a lot of dark bits in this movie, but not too dark. A lot of light bits in this movie, not too light, I think it's a good movie, especially coming down from Moonraker, which I actually like Moonraker, It's lower, but I don't, 20 and up. I said this before, 20 and up, I like these movies. It's hard to rank them. It's like picking your favorite kids, you know what I mean? But we do it. We got to move on. Number 11, just edging the top 10. We got Dr. No, and I freaking love this movie. When I saw Dr. No, oh my God, I wanted to see it again immediately after it ended. I think it's just such a beautiful movie for the time period. I think there's, obviously editing and stuff in the 60s was not even close to where it could have been, and pacing and things were always an issue. But you just got to look past that and look at what they did with what they had, especially the first one. There's no explaining what's going on. There's no, let's catch you all up to speed. Let's teach you something. You just jump right in, and I think that's so nice. None of the Bond formula is really in there too, so that's kind of cool to see. Going through all these, and you go back to Dr. No, and you think, wow, this is. I mean, it's a standalone movie. You could say it's anything. Any hero could have done this. Not necessarily a James Bond or a spy or whatever. Like, you could just jump in and say, I'm enjoying this movie, not even realizing it's a James Bond movie. There are ridiculous things in it too, of course. And, it's very dated in some places, but man, I think some of those cold blood kills, some of those action scenes, you don't really get a feel for the stakes necessarily, but there's that grand theme, that grand feeling towards the end, and I just think it's a really, really good movie. I like it a lot. There's some iconic stuff in here, of course, iconic sets. And I think the biggest thing that lets it down is the soundtrack. I mean, it's hard to listen to some of the sounds in there. Like, I don't think they knew what they were doing with that, but they knew what they were doing with everything else, which is just so weird to me. It's like, a good score can really change the tide on this thing. And I think, if it had some better music in it, it might be shooting up to the top there. But we'll sit at 11 for now. Number 10, The World Is Not Enough, which is a movie I have never understood why it got so much hate. I mean, people hate this movie. There's a lot of people that love it now. It's kind of making a comeback. The whole Brosnan era, I guess, is making a comeback for the most part. But, man, The World Is Not Enough. I don't know if it was just too weird to break from the main formula so much. But, I mean, Brosnan, his whole era made, every movie felt a little fresh in its own way. They did a little something different each time. And this was cool. Great twist. Another movie where there was a twist for the bad guy. And, you kind of, like, when you go through that, it's like, wow, I can't believe, I never saw that coming. And you learn with Brosnan as well through, just going through the movie, which is also really cool. It's not something we just know or he just knows. We all learn it together. Great action scenes in here, but you're able to rewatch them. The action, the twist, all that stuff. Like, it's rewatchable. It doesn't spoil it for you if you go back. You can always have fun in this. Incredible opening scene. Just so good. And Brosnan looks so great in the role and so comfortable. And I've always had a soft spot for him, of course. Some stuff that lets this movie down. They don't explore the no pain thing. And it just seems like, why even bring it up if it's not even going to be a factor? There's a lot that just flows really well, but also parts that kind of, they just stop in places, and it feels very, like, dramatic and drawn out in areas. I don't even mind Denise Richards in the role. I know it's ridiculous, but, how many times... how can we look at her and say, oh, yeah, that's ridiculous. But then, the next movie, we have a space laser melting the ice caps. Pick your poison, I guess. But it's like, I've looked past a lot of things in Bond. I've looked past a lot of this kind of stuff. And I think she was fine in the role. I don't think she was great. I don't think her character's great. But I don't think she is... a reason not to watch this movie like a lot of people make her out to be. Overall fun movie. I liked it as a kid. I like it now, even more so, I would say. Moving on to number 9, and this is where I had such a tough time ranking these, because most of these are so interchangeable, so iconic, so good. Live and Let Die is amazing. This is where things really started to get hard, and I almost had to work my way down the list just because I just didn't know where, there's just subtle nuances and things. Live and Let Die, Moore comes on, and he comes on strong. What a debut. He was so good in that. He looked so good in it. He acted so well in it. I think they have some incredible acting in this. I love Yaphet Kotto is such a great actor, and somebody I've loved everything he's been in. Another twist and turn in this one. Another movie where the villains are just so good, but luckily Moore is also acting on a high note as well. So it feels so balanced, and I always look back and I'm so, like, giddy at this movie too, because it's like it's the end of an era. The Sean Connery era is officially over for this. And I just put myself back in time and think, like, man, we got a new Bond coming out. How is the audience going to respond? How is the world going to handle this? And it just feels like Moore comes out swinging. And I get really excited about little things like that don't even really have anything to do with the movie. But it just feels so good. I think there's a lot of things that are awesome in here. The boat chase, I have no problem with it. I think it's awesome. The length, everything like that is fine. The crocodile scene in the farm, that's awesome. Locations aren't like the most glamorous, especially me being from the U.S. and having been to New York and things like that. Like, I can respect and appreciate any location to a certain degree, though, so it doesn't bother me as much as it might bother some people, that it's not some glamorous, fancy location. But I really do love this movie, and I think they just did such a good job at revitalizing the franchise. Coming off of not necessarily for me, but for a lot of people, a very low point in the franchise history. Number 8, we are going to do Goldfinger, and that's a movie that, I feel like 5-10 years ago, if I put it at number 8, people would be like, what are you doing? Well, you're out of your mind. And I get it, because, Goldfinger is a fantastic movie. It's one of the most iconic movies. It's one of those where if you're just a fan of classic movies, not even necessarily Bond, you just have to watch it, because it's just one of those things that set a whole lot of years of great movies in motion. That being said, I think people do look at it and say it's Goldfinger. It started, the Bond formula and kept it going. It's a great movie with great acting and strong characters all around. But that being said, just because it's iconic and it's incredible in certain areas doesn't mean the whole thing for me works too well. I mean, I think the plot's crazy, but it's Bond, so you go with it. The Bond being captured, he acts very well in that. I think Goldfinger himself is awesome. Odd Job is obviously iconic. All of those characters are so iconic in that film. But like I say, I have a lot of fun with it. I don't have nearly as much fun as I do in some of the other movies. And I think Goldfinger has slipped a lot, mostly just because I think when you really watch it and you see those things that are just kind of ridiculous, dude, every time I see Goldfinger get sucked out of that plane, I'm just like, wow. You could have done anything else and it would have looked better than that. It just, I don't know, it's something that shouldn't bother me as much as it does, but it just bothers me so much. I think it's also a little jarring to see Connery doing some of the things in the movie as well. A little tough to swallow some of that. But, a lot of these older movies you have to look at, as a time capsule and take the good with the bad because, life like that is not, it's not as prevalent in this day and age, of course. And there's just some things that you just can't, like I say, the good and the bad. It's just not around today the way it was before, and it definitely doesn't fly. And I am totally on board with that. And it does not make some of these things all right tonally, but, you just have to look at it through a historical eye and just go, okay, that was tough to sit through, but look at the locations, I mean, it's still a movie. It's still just, you just take it and you enjoy it how you can. Goldfinger for me is one that I can enjoy most of the time, but there's still those little cringe moments and things like that. And the plot, like I say, it's great, but it doesn't make a ton of sense in the grand scheme. So I think even though they technically perfected the Bond formula here for the first three movies, I think Connery's doing a great job. I still think they did it better in other movies. But it's one that goes up and down, Sometimes I watch it and I'm like, man, this is the movie right here. But I don't think it's ever been in my top three. Moving on to number 7, You Only Live Twice. And that's, I think, where we can people are going to look at me and say, Goldfinger under You Only Live Twice. The problem with the first few movies, actually, not really Thunderball, but with Dr. No, with From Russia with Love, especially Goldfinger and especially You Only Live Twice, is that there's so much iconography in here. That volcano base, the grand opening with rockets being stolen and stuff like that. I mean, Blofeld reveal. There's just some crazy stuff going on in here. And another one where, tonally, it's very jarring in places, but it's almost more ridiculous than uncomfortable. Whereas Goldfinger, there's some uncomfortable bits. You Only Live Twice, it's just ridiculous and doesn't make any sense and doesn't further the plot when he turns Japanese. I like the wedding scene, a lot of that just really kills the movie. So, I mean, this is another one where, the first part's incredible. I love the first part. The last part's incredible. I love the last bit where they're in the volcano base. And there's bits and pieces in between that are awesome, but then just that whole turning Japanese scene, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't look good. It's ridiculous. The locations are beautiful, however. It's a well shot film. Little Nellie's awesome, of course, that whole scene. But the elephant in the room is Connery just couldn't care less to be in this one, and he looks miserable. That's something I need. That's something I love, is a Bond to be strong and care a lot about the role. If he was in top form, I mean, this would easily be the best one, and that's how I see it. Like, I see it versus Goldfinger and some of the other Connery ones especially, and think, man, if he had just been acting on form, I mean, like, this thing would be incredible. But yeah, sets are beautiful and just super amazing, iconic, awesome. Music's great. The You Will Only Live Twice song, the actual theme song, is one that just, I don't know why, it's so impactful to me, and I think that just kind of carries out with that movie. When I first saw it, I loved it, and I still love it, and I just have a lot of fun with it. I just have a lot more fun with it than I do a lot of these movies, and it's one that I can always go back to and enjoy. Number 6 is Casino Royale. I mean, if we're talking about just a straight-up good movie, this has got to be, in my opinion, the best one in the franchise. It's such a cold, great open, like just well-styled, well done. It's not too artsy like the rest of the Craig movies are. It's a standalone great film. He acts fantastic in it. All the characters in here are great. It's so unique. It's so awesome. It's a great origin story that we didn't necessarily need or want, but they needed it and wanted to put it in there. And it's fun to watch, so, it's okay. I have no problem with that. But, God, what a great movie. I love this one. The only thing is, I don't feel that classic fun factor that I feel with a lot of the other movies. The Brosnan era had a lot of that. And they're not too far removed from Casino Royale, but they wanted to do like a more realistic, more gritty, more darker, Bond, a more human Bond, and they do it. They do it well, and it's really, really good to watch. But it's not one that's going to compete with the other ones on this list above it, because I can get so much more out of the other movies. Like, I have more moods that I feel like watching the other movies. Like I say, I am not saying that they are better than this one. I think this is probably, for me, I think it's the best Bond movie. And I saw this when it came out. It was amazing. I left speechless. I left having such a great experience with that movie. I felt so many different things. I think it's the best one overall, but it's not the most fun for me. It's not the one I could watch anytime. It's one I'd be happy watching anytime, but if you gave me an option in some of my moods, the ones up above this are tied to stronger moods and stronger feelings and more of them. Number 5, we have Octopussy, which I am so freaking happy it's making like a comeback, a resurgence. It's being revisited by a lot of Bond fans, because it's been heavily scrutinized and criticized, and it's been the butt of a lot of jokes. But when I first saw this, I was not on the forums. I was not in like the fandom stuff. I wasn't watching it on YouTube. I wasn't looking at rankings or anything. I just saw this movie and thought, wow, I really liked it. Like, it's awesome. It's one of my favorite movies. I think it doesn't get too dark, but it can be serious. I think there's a lot of bits and pieces that kind of work well together. The clown in the beginning, 009 gets killed. And then more is a clown later on, almost as like a redemption, kind of like, hey, we're going to stop this plot, defuse this bomb. You have to take me seriously. But I'm also disguised as a clown to get away from the people that are hunting me down. So it's like, if you think about it on a deeper level, there's definitely, it's not just, being stupid to be stupid. However, I will say the Tarzan swing and the sit to the tiger manhunt chase thing, that's just being stupid to be stupid, and that's where I have a little bit of problem with this movie. It's still fun. It's still awesome. I mean, it's that campy Roger Moore era. I love Roger Moore. I think he's fantastic in this movie. I think all of the supporting cast is incredible. The villains are great. Maud Adams is fantastic. I think it's just fun to watch. It's just fun to watch and go along for the ride. The plot's crazy. It's all over the place, and I can't defend that. I mean, you watch it a couple of times and you can kind of get it down, but man, I think it suffers from not knowing what it wants to be a lot. It's fine because it works. And I think We get some of the coolest stuff in this movie. Again, though, what falls flat for me, and I think, excuse the clown, the Tarzan, all that stuff, the final battle at the end, that big battle, it's always with the big battle just kind of shoehorned in. We got trapezes and half-naked women flipping and kicking people, and why? Where did that all come from? I just never, even if there's a reason behind it, it's still just so ridiculous to me that, we got armed guards everywhere, and then now we got women swinging on trapezes and they're defeating them. It's just so ridiculous. It makes no sense. Hot air balloon. I could name 10 different methods of transportation that would be more practical than that hot air balloon. That whole scene is just so ridiculous to me. And I get it, they're trying to, get a reaction from the audience, and they sure do. But I think you take that out of the movie, and it's a lot more serious, and people take it more seriously. Doesn't kill the mood for me, though, because there's just so much good in there. One of my favorite just jokes, scenes, whatever, in this whole franchise is when, Roger Moore is being escorted to his room by Govinda, and he asks for a nightcap. That whole scene, it's so jokey, it's so sarcastic and ridiculous, and I think it's just the funniest thing in the world. I absolutely love it. I laugh every time. I laugh just thinking about it. Like I said, it's a great movie. It's a better movie than people give it credit for, and I think if you really pay attention to it, you can have a lot of fun with this movie, and I love it at number 5, and I'm glad people are coming around to it. Number 4, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, another movie where I had really low when I first saw it, but I gotta say, I don't mind George in this one. Old George. Diana Rigg's incredible. The story, the plot, the villain plot, take it or leave it. It's weird. I don't know if it necessarily makes a whole lot of sense, but Telly Savalas is great, despite the plot. And God, you want to talk about a dramatic, amazing final scene? This is another great one in the Bond franchise. It's actually very emotional, and I think it's well acted and well scripted. It's a beautiful movie. I am a sucker for nostalgia and, time capsule kind of things, clothes, style of movies, scenery, that kind of thing. Man, this movie has all of that. It is just so 60s, so 70s, that time period where, colors and bigger is better, and it's just it's so well shot. It's beautiful. It's just such a fun movie to look at. And that being said, I think it's a great movie to watch in general. Just there's a lot of good scenes. It's a very, straightforward kind of movie as well. It's just he's, man on a mission. I love that. You definitely have to follow along though. It's the only thing that kind of sucks about the movie is if you're just watching for the first time, it's real easy to have no idea what's going on in parts. But I think it's just, like I say, such a beautiful movie, and it's becoming one of those very, very iconic films in the franchise. So I love that. I'm glad that I revisited it a few times and really enjoy watching it now. It's one that I could easily pop in and just kind of throw those nostalgia glasses on for the wardrobe, the outfit, the scenery, all that kind of stuff. I think it's so cool. Number 3, a classic, From Russia with Love. Boy, what a movie this is. And I love a stripped down spy kind of thriller, and this is that movie. This is the one that set all of those in motion. The train scene is amazing. The locations are great. The gypsy camp's the only thing that I just don't understand. I mean, a lot of that stuff that's just kind of put in there to be put in there throughout this franchise, I don't really jive with. But man, From Russia with Love has a lot of really cool things. Connery feels great. He looks like he's really settled into the role and is continuing to define what it is. it's one that I can easily watch anytime. It's one that I don't have like traditional, fun with like the campy era or anything like that, or the nostalgia like I do with GoldenEye, but it's definitely the movie where I can watch it and I can just be right there the whole time and not want to break away, but I love it. I think it's such a great movie. I think it's super fun to just kind of go back and look at how really there's certain categories that each film kind of fits into. There's a more stripped down, there's the outlandish crazy one. There's the new Bond being introduced into this. There's the, twist and turn Bond. There's like several different categories you can place these movies in. And I think everybody just kind of picks and chooses like what their favorite from each one is. Octopussy is probably my favorite, like just ridiculous campy movie. On Her Majesty's Secret Service is more my favorite, like following Bond through more of a personal journey kind of thing. From Russia with Love is my favorite of the stripped down spy thrillers. I think that's just the one that I really, really turn to. I think everything just works very well. And God, again, that train scene, I just start to finish is just captivating. Number 2 and number 1 kind of flip flop. Number 2 is GoldenEye. Just whenever I'm feeling it, whenever I'm in the mood for a movie that I just want to go back to, that hits nostalgic levels on all levels. When I was growing up, when I watched this movie the first time, the 90s, my first experience with my own like Nintendo 64 games, because we played games back in the day, and GoldenEye was one of those that I was like, I want that one, and it was the first one that I really picked out and said I want that one. So all of these things have such a nostalgic feel for me. And on top of that, it's just such a good movie. I mean, it's like, it's unique in a way with Sean Bean being, 006 double crossing, 007 and MI6. The villains are unbelievably good. Everybody in this movie is so good. I love this whole thing from start to finish. It's such a fun ride. There's just enough humor. There's just enough action. There's just enough everything. Brosnan comes out firing. I love this movie. I love him in this movie. I love the style of it. It's just such a great movie. And I'm happy to watch it literally anytime. Anytime anybody wants to watch it, anytime it's on, anytime I just see it in my, in my catalog or on the shelf, I'm like, God, I could really watch that right now if I got some time. It's just great. I mean, start to finish, like I say, there's not a single part in this movie that I think really lets me down. And, most James Bond movies, there's that part that we're just kind of like, here we go with this one. Or, this doesn't really fit here. But with GoldenEye, I just think it is just absolutely perfect all the way through, and I love it so much. That being said, it brings me to number 1. And number 1, to me, is everything I love about Bond. Everything I love. Like I say, it's kind of interchangeable, 1 and 2, GoldenEye and The Spy Who Loved Me. But number 1, The Spy Who Loved Me, I loved this movie when I saw it. It hit so many different notes for me, even down to the locations. I am such a huge fan of, like, ancient civilizations, ancient Egypt. The colors in there, the villains, Jaws is iconic. I think it's kind of like big and over the top and crazy plot, but it's not one where I'm like, okay, come on, that's a little too crazy. Like, I mean, it's crazy, but it's not space lasers crazy. It's something that we've seen before. They captured the submarines just like they captured the space capsules in You Only Live Twice, but it just feels better. It feels more interesting. It's the first occurrence of an opposite of Bond. It's the East and West working together. It's got such an iconic opening, one of the best openings in the franchise. It has a big battle at the end, and I historically hate the big battles, but this one works because it made sense that everybody's there. He's helping to break free these the submarine, navalmen that were on the ship and on the subs. So they're going to naturally fight back against Stromberg's army and, whoever he has. So it made sense that they were there. They didn't just happen to just be there at the right time, right place. They didn't just, happen to fly in on a trapeze. Like they were there as held captive and were broken out. I think more is on top form. I think the Lotus scene underwater and then with the helicopter and all of that was just incredible. I think there's a lot of spy stuff in here. It's so good. There's twists and turns. Everything about this movie is just so good to me. I love it so much, and it's so fun, and I get excited just talking about it. So naturally, like I say, this list is more my personal taste and more when I'm in the mood for these movies. This is what I'm in the mood for, I guess, as I've been watching them through, how I felt about them and everything like that. And I know, even my own list would differ depending on how I felt or, revisiting these movies. So in a couple of years, I might do this again, and we'll see how the list changes or, stays the same or whatever. But I had a lot of fun ranking these, and I have any excuse to go back and watch these movies again. I think is super fun. But please don't be afraid to talk about, your list, compare and contrast what I got, too high or too low. And it's fine either way. Cause like I say, I'm not saying these are the best movies, because I definitely think Casino Royale is probably number one when it comes to all around well-made movies. But, that's a different list for a different time. And, I had a lot of fun doing this. I can't thank you enough for hanging out. I will see you all in the next one, and do not be afraid again to suggest new lists or new fun things we can do here. I also have some other ideas with the James Bond thing that we're going to do that are kind of unique and fun. But I will see you all next time. Stay well, everybody.